Hello and welcome, my magical friends. This is Mary, your host, and you will be watching the second episode of my occult bookshelf. And in this episode, I want to talk to you about the book Occultism, the ultimate guide to the occult, including magic, divination, astrology, witchcraft, and alchemy by Mari Silva. This book is written as an almost all-encompassing introduction. Because it covers a very wide range of topics, is a really good one for someone that doesn't know where to start. Positives about this book is that it's very well organized, so is beginner friendly. I do also really liked the historical content, but I would not call it an ultimate guide. There is definitely too short for that, and everything that it talks about is just a very short introduction that kind of gives you an idea of what it is or what practices. And again, it's just not. I will not call it the ultimate. I will call it a beginner or initiation into something like that, because what it cover is a bit just surface level. Again, is I will call it like a dictionary perhaps, because a lot of his content is just giving meaning or definitions of what something is. Let me show you some of the pages. Here is the table of contents. So saying what is the cult, talk about modern witchcraft, activating your inner witch, tools of the craft. So here it talks a little bit about what is the occult in that part that I really like, which is a little bit of history, and it mentions quite a few names that are big personalities in occultism, which again, if you know about them, then you can start researching more. I highlighted the text because of the names. I am familiar with William Butler. I am familiar with Austin Osman Spare, but I'm not with Wesley Kandinsky. So I wanted to make sure I investigate and I look for more information about that. Here, for example, we have branches of occultism, divinatory practices, paganism, then we have what is spiritism, and then we go to myths and things that occultism is not. From there, we jump right away to modern witchcraft. It gives some nice names and it gives a little bit of an introduction. I always love to find more about history. It gives you a distinction between Wiccans and pagans. It says what a coven is not, talks about leaders of a coven. Then we have types of witches, and here we have it says the hereditary witch, the green witch, the head witch, the clam witch, gem witch, cosmic witch, traditional witch, oracle or diviner witch, eclectic witch, swamp witch, necromancer, the solitary witch, the desert witch, the sea witch, the elemental witch. As you can see, just as I said, this is a lot of meaning. So again, I sort of feel like this is a dictionary, really telling you what something is. Like with the cosmic witch, it says they practice astrology and other forms of celestial magic. Their kind of divination is strongly aligned with the stars and planets. They also can choose to work with herbs, oils, runes, or crystals. That said, you definitely can use this information to go deeper into it if there is something that sort of calls you and you have this, like, oh, I want to know more. But again, because of this, because it's so surface level and is more like a definition rather than practices and more things, is not an ultimate guide. We have activating your inner witch and gives you a lot of signs that you might be a witch. I don't know how to approach this part because I think anyone can do magic. But it might give someone reassurance that they can practice witchcraft. I'm not sure what some of the things that it says that if you might be a witch is like you have a healing or calming aura, you're filled by compassion, you dream in high definition, saying that if you're clairaudient, yeah, if you have clairaudience, if you're clairvoyant, etc., you most likely are a witch. Oh, actually, here it says you are. That's science if you are. The most likely was something that I added, so I want to rectify that. Then we have basic witchcraft terminology, which is giving us the sort of like a glossary or a vocabulary about things of witchcraft and occultism. So we have what is an altar, what is an amulet, we have the ink, arrow positions, the athame, auto da fe, a year and a day, we have Baba Yaga, we have the bell, book, and candle, the besom or besom, black book, the book of shadows, and other things I don't want to give too much because I don't want to give the whole content of the book. But again, every single one of them is just a definition, is like what it is. A cookbook witch, it says, a witch who tries to teach herself magic using a book. It talks a little bit of what some of the Sabbaths are. Like here we have Ostara, it says also called the Festival of Trees and Lady Day. This is celebrating the spring equinox in between March 21st and the northern hemisphere and is one of the lesser weekend Sabbaths. And you know that's all the information. So again, is just not an ultimate guide. It is a really good one to give you an idea of like when you don't know what you want to research, what to look first. You know, you could use this one as that kind of guide, but it's not gonna get you started into occultism or even witchcraft or some of the very, very old fashioned misconceptions like it says witches worship the devil and own black cats. And then it goes on explaining that like no, witches do not worship the devil, and some might have black cats, some may not, just like any other person that likes cats and happens to be black. Then we have the lunar phases. And the significant in witchcraft, it says the phases of the moon. So it explains that a waning crescent moon is the one that grows dimmer and thinner until the light of the moon is gone. And then it says, talks a little bit about the correspondence of days and what they are associated with. And it says it is from the perspective of moon magic, but actually it gives you more than that. It gives you the information, at least of like just what it is, so it doesn't give you just from the perspective of moon magic. It just gives you the information, and this is one of the few sections that is not just giving you a definition, is actually giving you a little more. In chapter 4, we have tools of the craft, where it's talking about the athame, bells, your book of shadow, candles. Again, this part is giving you a little more, and it's not just a definition, maybe because we already know what candles are, and it's just giving you an idea of how to use them. It gives you a little bit of story about the crystal balls and when they started being popular and how they were used. And then we have the first part that is sort of like an instruction, sort of step by step instruction that it says cleaning and storing magical tools. So it's still in that part. It also tells you how to charge them and charge your crystals as well. And then we have a small section of magical herbs and their correspondences. Angelica, basil, bay, allspice, mint, things like that. It also mentions magical trees and what is associated with. It gives you some useful apps, which is something I haven't seen in any book before. That is kind of interesting. It gives you different apps for tarot. It gives you some recommendation apps for lunar calendars and also weekend holidays. Then we have mindfulness and meditation, kind of like Headspace, which is kind of very popular. We have also books on witchcraft. It says Audible, Kindle, and Scribd. That is kind of like okay, we know. In fact, I am reading this book on my Kindle. Then it jumps to herbs again, but using flower for your altars, and it gives you the correspondence with different flowers, some very common flowers. One of the parts that I really liked was about the famous ancient grimoires. As I said before, I love the part of stories, giving dates and giving history. Is talking about the Grand Grimoire. It talks about the Great Albert. We obviously have the Keys of Solomon or the Clavicula Salomonis. We have the Book of Abramelin. Then we have type of grimoires, which again we jump into meaning. Say spell books, A book of spells with instructions, ingredients, and illustrations for spells written or found. Something else that is kind of really nice, it says questions to ask yourself before starting a grimoire or book of shadows. Again, this is something that you can use. This is something that is an instruction, is something that is going to be more than just a definition that will really be helpful. It keeps going with more and more definitions, with a few tips of how to organize your book of shadows. If you can do it by topic, by spells, by deities, like it's just give you a bunch of different ideas about how to organize that. Then it gives you a tiny little introduction on alphabets. It also gives an image so you can appreciate those different alphabets and a link to them. We have some hieroglyphics. The part of divination is talking a little bit about pendulum dowsing, numerology, runes, I Ching, palmistry. But again, obviously, is not going to be able to guide you in these things. It's barely giving you a very short introduction, which ends up being more of a dictionary than anything else. It is sprinkled here and there where things is not too surface, and it gets a little more like when giving the questions for your Book of Shadows. We also have an example of an invocation, which is done calling the four quarters in a weekend ritual. Then it talks like invoke, evoke, which one is which, gives you some information about crystals and the correspondences and what is good for, what amethyst is good for, what carnelian. And something interesting is that it divides it into alchemical properties and mystical properties. We have one spell on crystal magic for a house blessing and can also be used to consecrate it as sacred space. Gives you a small guide of creating your own spells. That is really nice. And the conclusion says, I am assuming you read this book cover to cover to discover the multifaceted world of occultism and witchcraft. You now know that understanding the supernatural entails self conviction, unbiased mind, desire, patience, and the courage to follow through, as well as the maturity to accept responsibility for every action you take. In the name of mysticism, you can confidently make sound arguments when faced with situations where you have to defend your new beliefs concerning supernatural occurrences and the use of magic. Occultists and witches do not torture children, ride brooms, or shape shift at will. They also do not belong to fairy tales. They are living, breathing humans and all around you. And it goes more, but again, I don't want to give too much of the book. So the conclusion is not a bad book, but is for the extreme beginner that doesn't even know the definitions of many things and needs to start from a complete zero, from knowing nothing to just very, very little. Because even though the book is not entirely a dictionary and entirely just giving meanings and definitions, the little parts that do give you some sort of guidance, some sort of step by step, some sort of instructions on how to do things or the correspondences is still so limited that I feel any other book will be better than this one for to go into those sections. Would I recommend this book? Honestly, as I said, just for the very beginners. If you already have a good grasp, what is it that you want to learn about mysticism, occultism, witchcraft, then this really is not going to help you that much. On the other hand, if you know you're interested in all these topics, but you don't know where to start and you want to know just a little bit, just surface level and enough, barely enough to see what resonates with you, then this book is going to give you a wide variety of topics and so you can go deeper. But you will definitely, even though it has useful information, it sort of left me with a bad taste for not being what it advertises to be. If you have read this book, please let me know what you think about it. Also, feel free to leave a comment and tell me what you think about this review.